Welcome to Mistakes Over Failure. And in this episode, our guest is Sofyan Almoayed. I'm Dr. Christine Crawford.
And I'm Leslie Wingo. Wanted to start with why we named the podcast Mistakes Over Failures. And when we came together about 2021, we wanted to give the podcast something special. And so in our view, mistakes are when you try for something big and you miss the mark. And failure is when you do it over and over and over again and expecting the same result. And part of the work that we've done is we've talked to different leaders, getting their experience on different things around inclusion, diversity, and how that shows up in the world for them. All of that to say, when we were prepping for this episode, I think it, from my experience, is what if we screw this up with you? What if we say the wrong thing? So with that in mind, if we screw up and say the wrong thing, just let us know. We would greatly appreciate it.
If you see me getting up and leaving, you know you're messed up.
First question, where are you from?
I'm from Bahrain.
What emoji do you use most often?
I use memojis, not emojis. So I have the emoji with the guy celebrating with the whistle and the celebratory one.
Favorite book?
I have a whole bunch of them in 2 different languages. The one I read most recently is The Gentleman from Moscow, which I absolutely love. That's in English. Mm-hmm. The rest are in Arabic, yeah.
Okay. If you really knew me, you would know.
I'm as introverted as you can get. I'm ridiculously introverted. Getting on stage is super easy, but what happens after I leave a group of people is a whole different story. It sucks energy out of me.
What was your first job?
I don't know if this counts or not. I left university, applied for a job, and I left in May, obviously, graduated, and I was told that my job would start immediately. And I said, can I just delay it a little bit? And I postponed my first job, which was an IBM as a marketing representative, to September. And I thought from May to September, I had gone to summer camps before, and I thought I would go and attend as a counselor. So my first job technically was a counselor in a summer camp in Switzerland.
Business acronyms, love them or hate them?
When I can understand them, I like them. But again, English is my second language, so some work, some don't.
What is your favorite dessert?
Yes.
Okay. Anything with sugar? Yes.
Anything with sugar, yeah, absolutely.
What is the one thing I wish I had started doing earlier in my life?
I think centering myself, meditation, just calming down, just taking the time to be with myself. Life rushes by when you're in a hurry, mm-hmm. and you run and run and run, then you realize that, wait a minute, where did that time go? So I wish I had spent more time with myself.
What is the hobby or job you have always wanted to do, but you haven't yet done so?
Photography. I would have loved to have been a photographer. I don't have the talent or the skill. I know how to use a camera, but it's something I really, truly appreciate.
Perfect.
So what would you like the world, our listeners, our community to know about your home and Bahrain?
My home is an interesting place. So the oldest epic in human history is it's called the Epic of Gilgamesh. And like all ancient civilizations, it's about demigod and how they have all these mythical characters. Every ancient civilization buries their dead across the sea or across a body of water. So the pharaohs buried their dead across the Nile in Giza, right? The Greeks across the river Styx, the Romans across the river Tiber, and so on. We are in Mesopotamia, and the Mesopotamians used to put the dead in a boat and send them to heaven, which was my little island, which is across the water from Iraq. So we are the oldest cemetery in human history. We're about 5,000 years old cemetery. And then the Epic of Gilgamesh stemmed from that civilization. The epic talks about a guy who went and got the plant of life from the intersection of the 2 seas. Now, Bahrain literally means the 2 seas in Arabic. The intersection of the 2 seas is because we have a lot of freshwater sources that grow under the sea. So the legend is that this guy, who's a demigod, wanted to live eternally, basically wanted to turn into a god, and he was told that he had 7 tasks, like all the ancient civilizations, and the first of which was to go to Bahrain, which is heaven, and to find that plant that grew at the intersection of the sweet and salty waters. So yeah, we have an ancient civilization, and our whole history is based on that.
So could you tell us a little bit about your family, your business, who you are?
So as a family, we've always been in that neighborhood between Saudi and Bahrain and ancient Persia and so on. We moved to Bahrain in the 1700s from what is today the UAE. We were in the UAE from 1500-ish to about 1700. 1792, my great-great-great-great-grandfather started a business in Bahrain. And every couple of generations, somebody splits off and starts a new business, and it's been going ever since. So that's my extended family. My immediate family is I'm married with 4 kids.
What led you to YPO?
I didn't know what I was getting into, to be honest with you. We had a friend of mine went and the regional chair at the time wanted to start a chapter in Bahrain. Originally, there was a chapter called Bahrain and Saudi chapter. And this was 1994 that the chapter was started. Saudi became really big and kicked Bahrain out. So all of a sudden, Bahrain is left without a chapter. And the Saudi chapter rebranded from Bahrain and Saudi to just Saudi chapter. So they wanted to start chapter in Bahrain. So 2004 or 5-ish, a friend of mine invited us that we're having a dinner for something called YPO, the Young Presidents Organization. At the time, you have to remember, YPO was between 3,000 and 5,000 people. So it was a much smaller YPO than what you have today. And we sat at that dinner in the restaurant and we talked and everybody had heard of the other people in the room, but we weren't friends. I mean, they're all business families, they're all acquaintances. And then he said, please join me in welcoming our speaker, His Excellency, the President of Costa Rica. And this guy stands up and goes and speaks, and he's the ex-president of Costa Rica. And I thought, oh my God, if this organization can drag a president of a country to come and speak to us, I want to be part of this. And that's how we started. Now, the first thing we did is we were told that we had to do a launch event. And we said, sure, we'll have a party. They said, no, this is YPO. You have to have an only YPO event. So it took us about 1.5 to 2 years to set up the event. When we did set it up, we set up an event based on the F1, the Formula One, which was, I think the launch event was 2006, if I'm not mistaken, 5 or 6. And we spent $1.5 million on it. We brought singers, we brought musicians, we brought the most famous people. I don't know if you're into F1 or not, but I mean, the MC was Sir Jackie Stewart. We brought legends of the industry just to show people around. We created a race of chapters. We had about 500 people attend, and we picked somebody from every chapter, and we taught them how to drive Formula One cars, and we let them race, and we put the flags of the different countries on the cars. So we went wild. Now, what we didn't realize is that this would completely bankrupt the chapter. And it did. So the first 2 years were all out and let's spend money and let's do this and that. By the 3rd year, we realized that we're sort of short on cash. So I became the chair. And my take on this was, this is an opportunity. Right. Let's see how we can make people happy and how we can create something that costs us nothing. So we did a lot of events which were completely free of charge. And I mean, this is where the creativity comes in, right? Once you have no money to spend, let's see what you can do. We did a series of meetings with ambassadors, with ministers, with local people, which were free mainly. In the beginning, it was embarrassing to call somebody and say, we're going to have dinner with you in your house, as opposed to let's invite you, because we had no money, as simple as that. But I think the most interesting one that year is I called the admiral of the Fifth Fleet. The Fifth Fleet, as you know, is based in Bahrain, the American Fifth Fleet. And I said, we'd like to do something. And we have a group called YPO. He goes, yeah, of course, we know YPO. So I said, okay, can you do something for us? He goes, just give me some time. And then he calls me up and he's like, we've got it arranged. We'll meet you at 5 o'clock in the morning on this day, and we'll be in this place. So I dragged everybody out of bed. Some I literally had to drag out of bed. I called their wives and had to tell them to push them off the bed to get them there. But got everybody to the airports, and the military airports. And we had a Black Hawk waiting for us.
Oh, my.
So they gave us 20 minutes, half an hour training session, and then they geared us up, and we got on the Black Hawks, open in the back, the whole 9 yards, and we flew, and we didn't know where we were flying to. And we land on this aircraft carrier that's off the shores of Iran. And we spent the whole day there. Now, what's interesting is with this helicopter, apparently the type of helicopter doesn't usually land on aircraft carriers because the planes are too light. So the planes fly off, right? So we landed, and you have everybody who's on the aircraft carrier hanging onto the planes to keep them in place. So it was definitely an experience. And we spent the whole day with them, and we mingled and mixed with the people there, with the sailors and whatnot. And we had lunch with them and all of that. And then to take off, do you know what being catapulted means
Yes.
in a military sense?
No, not in the military.
So in order to take off, a plane needs a long runway.
Okay.
We don't have a long runway. The
Right.
aircraft carrier is not long enough. So we get catapulted. A big, think of rubber band, pulls back, and then let's go. And you get shot off
In the
at a
helicopter.
ridiculous, in the plane, yeah. We took off in a plane. But that in itself is an experience. But this is what comes out of having no money. You get to think creatively. And this, I think, till today is one of the best events that we had in that chapter.
So what led you from chapter leadership into now you're the incoming global chair?
So once you're in the chapter leadership, once you reach chapter chair, you have to attend regional board meetings. Once you attend the first regional board meeting, that's an eye-opening experience, because you meet people from your region whom you had never met before. I met friends like Rafi, for example. I met him the first time in 2007, 2008, in the first regional board meeting. And then you become friends, and you continue as friends. And once that incentive is there to be on the regional board, you continue to be on the regional board. Being on the regional board is a good thing because it opens your eyes to things like the GLC and EDGE and everything else. And once you see that, you can't turn back. You want to be traveling internationally and seeing new destinations and new countries and seeing the world in different eyes. So that led to me chairing a network. And then from that, I joined the networks committee. And from that, I joined the board. And from the board, I'm here.
So as you think about your journey and you think about leadership, there's a lot of different people and personalities and cultures that come into play. How do you manage those personalities and cultures from all over the world as a leader?
With grace and charm and a lot of... How do you manage them? I don't think you need to manage them. I think you need to find out you need to get to what we all have in common. And everybody has that some humanity almost that we've got in common, that little chemistry that binds us to each other and to YPO. And once you find that, you can carry on with a conversation. I mean, look at us, right? We met, 10 minutes ago?
Right.
And we can so easily have a conversation. We have that little DNA, that little tidbit of commonality that makes us who we are. And once you grasp onto that, the rest is easy. The rest is details. I was blessed in my leadership journey with the board specifically. I joined the board from 16 to 19, 2016, 2019, and then left the board. So I'm the first chairman to actually come in from outside the board, which in itself is a learning experience. You're being parachuted into a board that has worked together for 3 years, and you're being told, lead them. So it's been interesting.
So how has your leadership journey in YPO helped you in your business? And perhaps how has your leadership in your business helped you in your leadership journey within YPO?
My business is local meaning just within the Gulf. YPO is far from local. You have to worry about issues which take place in everywhere from South America to North Asia to, it's definitely not my business. So it's eye-opening in many ways. I think YPO has helped me in my business, and that it's, so think of it this way. If you are a YPOer who's handling an events committee or handling just something to do with events in YPO, it teaches you how to do what we've done here with the GLC. It teaches you how to create an event on steroids. Right? No matter what business you're in, you will have to have an employee get-together. You will have to have a function for your friends, your clients, your something. YPO teaches you how to manage that. That's just a small example. And we can say the same about forum, and we can say the same about learning and about everything else. So it just expands your horizons.
Is any of your family in YPO and in leadership positions?
My brother is in YPO. I'm in a chapter called the Khalij chapter. Khalij literally means Gulf in Arabic. It's the Arabic word for Gulf. So I used to be a member of the Bahrain chapter. 7 years ago, I want to say, I started a chapter called Khalij, which is an Arabic-speaking chapter. And it's the only Arabic-speaking chapter in YPO. And that is my regional chapter. It's based in the Gulf for people who speak Arabic in the Gulf. My brother is a YPOer also in the Bahrain chapter, but also in a Dubai chapter. So he's in 2 chapters, I'm in 2 chapters.
We on this podcast started to talk about diversity and inclusion and what that means and how YPOers are global and they have very different experiences, very different needs. And so you talked about this chapter that you started that is all Arabic, and it is that example of embracing difference, but also making sure that folks have that same great YPO experience in a way that is comfortable for them by making sure, in this example, that it's in Arabic, correct?
Well, you can look at it 2 ways.
Right.
You can say because it's an Arabic-speaking chapter, it excludes people who don't speak Arabic. But you can also look at it from the way that you described, which is because it's an Arabic-speaking chapter, it brings people who prefer to speak Arabic and makes them part of the greater YPO. The nice thing about that is we have a lot of leaders in the Arab world, whether it's kings or monarchs or leaders of different countries, and they speak Arabic and they're proud of their language. To go to them and say, hi, we're YPO X and we'd like you to give us a presentation, but can you do it in English? Is a little insulting. So we target that market. As far as inclusion is concerned, I mean, different parts of the world have different definitions of inclusion and diversity and whatnot. I grew up in a country which has I'm not going to say race because the majority of us are Arabs, but in a country that has very diverse ethnic backgrounds in terms of religion. So I grew up, my best friend in Bahrain, who's a YPO with me, I got him to YPO, is Jewish. He's an Arab Jew. He's from Bahrain with a Bahraini passport, but he's Jewish. We have a few members in our chapter who are from Bahrain, but they're Christians. We have members in Bahrain who are Bahraini, but Hindu. So as far as that aspect of diversity, we've got that covered. We have every religion you can think of represented. We have the Sunnis, we have the Shiites, we have everybody's there. We have a lot of females, and we started out with a lot of females in my Bahrain chapter. We were the first regional board and the first chapter to actually provide YPO with a female regional chair. So the first female regional chair in all of YPO worldwide is my chapter, was in my chapter. So I don't think that type of diversity is an issue. The issue of color is not an issue for us because we come in all kinds of colors. We come in a whole bunch of shades, you know. So to us, it's not an issue in our country. It's just never even talked about. Inclusion is an interesting one. Because I don't know who we're not including. So I probably I'm blindsided, you know, in that respect. I don't see it in my chapter. I see it in many other chapters. But the fact that I see it makes me able to point it out to people. And that has changed me in many ways. Because in the past, I didn't see it. The fact that YPO talks about it, and you guys talk about it so often, it's actually brought it in the spotlight for me.
When you talk about diversity within the chapter, was it intentionally done that way, or was it naturally done that way because that is how the culture is?
That is the culture that exists specifically in Bahrain. So we had a couple of years ago, we had the Israel chapter come and visit us in Bahrain, right? And they came in, and the first thing we did is we took them to the local synagogue. Okay, the local synagogue is a couple hundred years old, and they saw it and they liked it and so on. Then we took them to the local Hindu temple. And they came out and they asked me, why are you taking us to a Hindu temple? Why is this a big deal? And my response to them was that we're taking you to a Hindu temple because it's easy today to say that we're accepting of other people. This Hindu temple is 200 years old, right? To say that my ancestors' ancestors, I guess, were accepting of diversity is a whole different story. A lot of people can say, today we're accepting. Not a lot of people can say that our ancestors were accepting of other cultures. And I was telling them, this is why we take you to a 200-year-old Hindu temple in the middle of a Muslim country, to demonstrate to you that this is what acceptance looks like.
I love that.
So what do you think about Bahrain and your growing up there and the culture there have prepared you for having these conversations in YPO, right? The confidence and the forethought to do what you just did in terms of making sure that there was a Hindu temple. How do you see that impacting your leadership and in your tenure?
I think smaller countries, and no discrimination against any country, but I think smaller countries are blessed in a way by being smaller countries, right? Bigger countries are good for the people in them because you don't need to leave the country and you have big enough markets. But smaller countries are blessed by the fact that they're small, because we can only thrive, we can only grow if we depend on other countries outside. So a country as small as Bahrain, we're 10 miles wide, by the way. So a country, yeah, it's that small. Yeah. So a country as small as Bahrain teaches people to become global citizens. If you don't go outside, you're not going to thrive as a business, as a people, as a community. So everybody has traveled. People in the US can't say that. You can't say every single American has traveled. In Bahrain, I can guarantee you, from the poorest to the richest, every single person has traveled. You don't have a choice but to travel, because you can't be trapped in 10 miles for the rest of your life. So the country by default creates global citizens.
And as a global citizen, for yourself, what have you learned from other cultures that you also apply to your leadership?
Oh, every culture has something I absolutely love. Different styles of leadership. I served in many committees in YPO, and I asked somebody who was overseeing the committees. I said, "What is the difference between my style and the style of the person before me and the style of the person who came after me?" And he said, "You're so different. The person before you." I'm not going to say which part of the world he's from, but culturally, they postpone decisions. It's the Hakuna Matata kind of, just leave it. We'll think about it for a little bit. And you wait and wait and wait. And 2 weeks or 3 weeks into it, the issue resolves itself. So that was their style of leadership. Just leave it be. It'll resolve itself. My style, and this is, I'm quoting somebody, my style is more presidential. Okay, precedential, not presidential.
Oh, okay.
So maybe I shouldn't have clarified that. But my style was more based on precedent. Okay, as are we as a country. Whatever you do, you think of the repercussions in the future. You can't decide on something because these are the ramifications in the future. So my style is precedential. Okay, so it's interesting to see outsiders compare your style to the style of people from different parts of the world.
So what is your dream for YPO?
To have more impact. I think we've been there, done that, ticked all the boxes, we've done everything. I think we can subtly change the world. And I think the initiatives that I would like to concentrate on are the initiatives, I call them the 20-year initiatives, which are initiatives that we do today, which we can't speak about, which we will talk about in 20 years. So something like what we did exactly 21 years ago when we brought YPO India to visit YPO Pakistan when the countries were about to go to war. And we actually, YPO, it wasn't me, it was, God bless them, people who were there at the time, who took YPO India, got on a plane and went to Pakistan, opened the borders, which had been closed for decades, sat with the YPO in Pakistan, hugged them, came across the border and met with the president of Pakistan, and then were flown back with the presidential plane to India to pass a message back to the Indian Prime Minister from the Pakistani Prime Minister. This we can talk about today because all the personalities involved are no longer in power. But we did stop a war. So these are the initiatives that I'm looking forward to doing more of. We have done a couple of them. I'm not going to speak about them today, obviously, but we have done a couple of them, and this is what I'd love to see. I want to see us have real impact.
When you said presidential, it actually is very presidential and a very diplomatic way of looking at leadership, business leadership also being diplomatic leadership, which...
Well, some people think leadership is making decisions immediately and moving forward immediately and, make a decision, even if it's the wrong decision kind of thing.
Yeah.
That's an approach, which is extremely common.
Right.
And some people believe that that is what people should do. That's one style of leadership. Some people believe that you should speak your mind, even if you break a few glasses on the way. That's another style of leadership. Some people believe in looking at the ramifications before deciding what to do. That's a third style of leadership. So there are many styles. I think the board that we're blessed to have in YPO today is a board that brings all these styles together. So I know who will tell me what. I know who to listen to when. It's been interesting. It's been really interesting. I've been learning. I'm the first chair to get elected to the board from outside the board. This wasn't allowed and had never happened before. So I've been, over the last year, I've been learning a mile a minute. It's incredible. learning from the people around me.
What can YPOers who are not necessarily engaged at this level, what can they do to support your efforts in the future in 20 years?
So everybody can get engaged at this level. If you're a chapter member, if you're a chapter anything, if you're just a member anywhere, this is what you can do. You can create an event. I mean, give me an example of a country, and I'll give you an issue that they've got. Right? Something as simple. Okay, so this I'll talk about. Something as simple as I was asked, where do you want to hold the next leadership meeting? Okay, and I said I'd love to pick. I'd love to do Disneyland, but it needs to be a place. We need to be fair to YPO, right? So I thought, where's a place that has offered us so many champions, which has never been paid back almost by YPO? We owe them so much, and we just have never, done anything there. And I thought India is an interesting place. So I wanted to do the next leadership meeting in India. Now, India, there's a catch in India that they might or might not let in the Chinese, they might or might not let in the Pakistanis, they might or might not, at the time when we decided on this, allow the Canadians for some reason in. So the ask was, can you make sure that India opens its doors to Pakistanis? And I had to go in January and visit with the government of India and sit with them. And their response was, of course, we'll open it if YPO is involved. Of course, we'll open it. So something this small, like allowing two countries which are not on the friendliest of terms to speak to each other, to attend meetings in each other's countries, this alone could have the potential to make peace in the future. So it's these little tiny steps.
One theme that I keep picking up is it seems as if you host and encourage, I think, uncomfortable conversations a lot. And how would you suggest, or what learnings can you share with business leaders who have to have uncomfortable conversations with their staff, with other business leaders, from all of your learnings?
So it is what we said earlier about the whole DNA and chemistry and all of that. It is finding the common denominator. The conversation is not comfortable on a political level between India and Pakistan, fine. It's not comfortable maybe on a religious level, okay. It's not. And then you go down, you dig deeper, and you find out that the same people, they come from the same part of the world. They were one country once upon a time. Once you get to that common denominator, that's when you start the conversation. And in the case of YPO, you're even higher than that because the common denominator is YPO. Right. They're all business owners. They all have families. They're all most likely studying abroad. Their kids are studying abroad, and they probably have studied abroad. So yeah, you can open doors that way. Well, I mean, we talk about kids studying abroad. My son graduated last year from King's College in London, and he has a job back home. My daughter is at USC, and she's studying to be a war journalist at USC. Yeah, I know. But anyway, she's studying to be a war journalist in USC. I never thought the war would go to them in USC, but see, it happened. So last year she was looking for a roommate, right? She had a roommate who was assigned to her, or she had picked her, and they contacted her in July or something, saying that your roommate decided she's not going to make it to the university next semester. So you've just lost your accommodation. And we wish you the best of luck, and we'll see you next month. So this is July, and she starts mid-August. And if you're in that situation, what do you do?
Yeah.
So I go on the USC parents group, okay, and I send a message saying, help. This is the situation I'm in. This is where my daughter's at. Does anybody know of any accommodation or which building around campus will accommodate her? And somebody from Mumbai actually says, oh, my daughter is in the same situation. She's also in the Annenberg School of Journalism. How about we let them room together? Today, they're the closest of friends, and they plan on living together next year. This happened because of YPO. This happened because the minute a YPOer said, my daughter's looking for a roommate, I have that common DNA with that YPOer. I trust them because they're YPOers. If it was somebody random that I had never seen or heard of, I'd be hesitant. But because of that YPO connection, yeah, sure, why not? Yeah. And it was a happy match.
One of the things that we ask all of our guests is, what is your favorite mistake? So what is the thing that you thought you got wrong, but that you learned the most from?
I don't know about mistake. Something that didn't happen, which I thought at the time was negative. I think turned out as a positive. I did run for chair, okay, a few years ago. And I ran against a very, very, very dear friend, Elizabeth Zucker. And I went to my wife, who's very spiritual, and I said, pray that I win. And she said, I pray that you get what is good for us as a family. And I said, no, that's not what I asked for. Pray that I win. She said, no, I pray that you get what's good for us. So, okay, fine, we went with that. And I lost to Elizabeth, who was a fantastic leader. And I went back to my wife. You have to blame somebody, of course. And I said, you should have prayed for me to win. And she goes, maybe it's not good for our family. Maybe the timing is just not right. I said, well, this is my last year. I can't apply anymore. So lo and behold, this time passes and COVID starts. And the person who was selected chair never gets to travel or see the world, or had to make fantastically courageous decisions on closing the edge, on doing stuff which I wouldn't have been able to do probably. But she made these decisions, and God bless her, and she moved on, and she grew YPO to the next level. And my wife comes to me, she goes, don't you feel lucky? This was, you lost, but don't you really feel lucky? You would have been sitting here frustrated behind a Zoom screen throughout COVID, not being able to do anything. And you were talking about impact. What impact? You can't really go out there. So I thought, yeah, sure. It's maybe there's something to that. The following year, they shrunk the board and so on. They had less candidates and things changed. And 3 years later, I get an email saying, congratulations, you qualify. And I called up PY. I said, what? What do you mean I qualify? I thought only people who were on the board could run for chair. They said, well, we changed the rules a little bit. Now we accept people who were on the board in the last 3 years because we need more candidates. And you qualify. Okay. So press send. I'm interested. Fill in the forms. And a couple of months later, I get a call saying, congratulations, you're in. And I'm sitting with my wife, and I look at her, and she goes, see, now is the right time. So sometimes, it's not a mistake. It's not what you asked. But sometimes things happen for a reason. And what I tell people who apply, who run for these positions is do it again and again and again and again, and do not give up. Because you build character by just applying. Just apply. Even if you lose, you really build character. The type of questions you get allow you to look internally, allow you to answer. They're thorough questions. There are quite a few pages of questions which make you, there's a lot of reflection in them. So I think just that is worth it. Do not go in expecting to win. Do not go in expecting to do anything. Just go in because of yourself. I had to do a video this morning for people who are coming into the organization. And my first statement, that video is, if you're coming in because you want to grow your business, if you're coming in because you want to make more money, you're the wrong candidate. You need not be in YPO. But if you're coming in because you want to improve the learning, you want to meet peers, you want to create a network, you want to, love your family more, have opportunities to meet with your family and do things with them, then yes, this is the right place for you. I don't know if that answers your question. But
thank you. Beautifully answers the question.
It's a long-winded...
No, I think it's great. And I think it's an interesting way to look at leadership in terms of it's not always about being at work. It's about, and to your wife's credit, it's about holistically everybody, not just you.
Yeah.
Which is, I think it's a beautiful answer.
What would you like to share with the YPO community? So if you could leave the global YPO community with one thing that you want them to do in the next year, what would that be?
Exactly what you said, global.
Okay.
I want them to think global. I want them to go global. I want them to attend events globally. I want them to see the world outside their little cocoon, because we get too comfortable in our own space. And when you have your own space, you have the groupthink, and you become sort of trapped in that one specific way of thinking. I want them to travel. I want them to see. I want them to experience. I want them to... we went a couple of months ago. We're in May, we went in January. We went for our board meeting, which was in Rwanda. And to be able to... I can give you a lecture on the genocide in Rwanda 20 years ago. To be able to come from a place like Bahrain in the Gulf, and to be able to sit in a place like Istanbul and talk to people about a genocide that happened in Rwanda 20 years ago, that is a global perspective. I would love for all the members to be engaged internationally and have knowledge of all the countries that represent YPO for now. Later on the world, but for now, YPO, we're happy with that.
So one of the best things when I was coming into YPO was Forum. How has your forum, or forums plural, prepared you for this role? And why are forums so critical or important to YPO?
Well, I think forums are incredibly critical and important for YPO, but I don't think the experience of forum is similar to. I mean, it's super different for different people. Did I mention I come from a country that's 10 miles wide? So as you can imagine, everybody, it's difficult to find people in forum whom you didn't know before, or whom you don't compete with, or who fit that criteria. So I was in a local forum, which I absolutely loved, which had to be disbanded after a while, after a few years, because we're a transient society. So a head of this bank was moved to a different country, or a head of that consultancy was moved to a different country. So it was disbanded naturally because people just left the country. So I'm in one local forum, or I was in one local forum. Now I have a regional chapter, and I'm part of a regional forum. We're just beginning to set up. But I'm also part of an international forum, which I get great value out of. It is made up of super champions in YPO, and it spans the world. So we have a member from Singapore, we have China, we have India, we have Egypt, we have Spain, we have a couple of people from the US. We have, I think, Mexico, if I'm not mistaken. But anyway, South Africa. We have, so it's interesting to gather different perspectives. It's interesting because it shows you how small the world is. A business is a business. A family business is a family business. Issues across the board, different countries, same issues. So the sharing of experiences, I think, is eye-opening. And the fact that you can do it with people, we take it for granted in the US, for example, that you'll find people who don't compete with you. That's not the case in smaller countries. Because a lot of the businesses, especially the ones that qualify for YPO, in order to qualify for YPO, in order to be big enough, you have to be in a whole bunch of businesses because the market is just not big enough. You can't be making buttons and sell enough to make it to YPO, right? Unless you're selling internationally.
Okay.
So anyway, Forum has been a guide for me. More importantly, now that my kids have grown up, my son graduated again 7 months ago, and some of my forum mates have been a godsend for me because they think of my kids as theirs. So as you know, when you give your kids advice, they don't listen. When somebody else gives your kids advice, it's it's gospel as far as they're concerned, right? So I have forum mates who have been advisors, who have been guides, who have been mentors to my kids. So forum is more than just support for me, it's support for my family units.
And this, Sofyan, when you think about, and this is for people who are new members, we want them to be involved locally, we want them to be involved globally. What, in your view, is a good way to, once you've gotten your, I guess, the wings beneath you, so to speak, what is the best way to get involved globally in a global forum?
In a global forum, I think networks are the easiest approach. I think whether you want to, it depends on what you're interested in, but I think business networks are very interesting for people. A forum is a forum, but it depends what the entry point is. Do you want to enter through a business? Do you want to enter through a hobby? Do you want to enter, you start to form the photography network, start talking about your hobby and little by little sort of crawl into the rest of foruming? Or do you want to talk about construction and little by little crawl your way into the rest of the aspects of forum? But I think networks is the easiest way to find international forum. It brings you people who have at least that one drop in common with you. And then the rest is details.
And how would you explain YPO to someone who's never heard of the organization?
I don't know if you've seen or contemplated the logo of YPO.
I have.
Okay, and do you know what it stands for?
I have no idea.
Okay, in the middle of the logo, there's a small triangle, right, of a different color. Sometimes golden, sometimes blue, sometimes depending on whether it's on a pin, sometimes diamond, I guess. whether it's on a pin or on something else. But the center triangle is you as a member. Okay, you're the top of a pyramid. It's just the top of a pyramid. And all the other people around you are the tops of pyramids. So it's a little top of pyramid sitting amongst their peers who are a whole bunch of tops of pyramids. And that's what YPO is. How's that for an easy description? You never thought of that, did you?
No.
That is beautiful because it's both about peers supporting one another as well as, I think, the learning from one another.
If you see it and you'll see it outside really large, just look at it because you're that pyramid amongst your peers.
And I love triangle strategies. And so one triangle leads to another triangle.
Oh, you can analyze it 200 different ways,
Sure.
but that's the real reason why it was created. It's just you're amongst peers. So it's YPO brings CEOs to a place where they can talk to their peers, where they confide in their peers, where they can, we all have the same issues. If you're a CEO of an organization, you cannot go back to your school friends and tell them, I have a problem. Should I invest $1 million or $1 billion in this company? Because they will look at you and they will laugh and say, that's your problem, right? So you need to bounce it off of peers. That's from the business side of it. The other side of it is when you're in this position, almost everybody around you wants something. This is putting you in a place where nobody wants anything from you, right? We're all YPOers. 99% of the people who attend a conference like the one we're in today, I have no idea what they do. And in all honesty, I don't care. They're humans. They have something in common with me. If they were not YPOers, they would want to know what I do. I would want to know what they did. Because we, as human beings, tend to place people in boxes, right? So is that person in the food industry? Are they in construction? You just want to place them in a box. We replace the box with a triangle. Once you place them in the triangle, it doesn't matter what they do.
Unless they're in networks with one another, which is
more specific,
right.
Yes. Yeah.
Right.
No, obviously, you meet somebody in the construction industry, they'd be sort of weird for joining if they're not construction industry.
Well, but just making sure that those who are in our listening community understand that it's peer support across industries, but then it's also within industries we support. And so we create peerdom in a larger sense and then peerdom in a local sense as well for your chapters, and then also across your business vertical or within an interest.
And look, you learn in the process when you lead an organization like this,
Right.
not as chair, but as a member, as somebody in championship position. When I was chairing networks, which was 2018, I think, or 19, I was talking to a lady, Courtney Dorn, who was the head of the Women's Business Network. And I had to ask every network, what is your goal for this network? And she answered with something profound. She said, my goal is to shut it down. And I said, why would you want to shut down the Women's Network? She goes, I want to reach a point where it doesn't matter if you're a man or a woman, where you're treated as an equal. So my ultimate goal is that we don't need this network, which I think is beautiful, to be honest with you. I think that these are the sort of goals that I learned from and appreciate, you know?
We want to thank Sofyan for joining us today to talk about YPO, which is our YPO, and how YPO can be both, I think, extended family, but a global extended family.
Absolutely.
Thank you.
Thank you so much for having me. I appreciate
Thank
it.
you.